Hey friends, in this week's beginner-friendly watercolor tutorial, we are painting oranges. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and around here we make art, and it's fun, not scary. And this week we're going to do a little mixed media watercolor art, painting seasonal fruit, oranges with orange blossoms and leaves. We'll start with pen, using those fine liners that I love, making that nice sketchy black illustration, and then adding the watercolor on top, basically creating a coloring image for you to play around with, practice your brush strokes, your color mixing. I'll be using my Shayda Campbell watercolor set, so if you purchased it recently, grab that, go run and get it. And for anyone who's interested, there is a sketch available on Patreon if you'd like to have my exact illustration. And also there's a great video from last week if you want to do some seasonal art. Let's get started and I'll show you my supplies. I am using my Perfect Sketchbook from Etcher. That's what it's called, and it really is the perfect sketchbook. It has 140-pound watercolor paper. I love that smooth surface, and we've done loads of projects in here over the year. This blue floral in particular was very popular. Go watch that one next. I'm going to clip that down, and then what else are we using? A pencil and eraser. I prefer a mechanical pencil, but anything goes. I am using my watercolor set, and this is what the case looks like. If you are shopping for it on Amazon, I've included all of my favorite colors in this little set. I've got an extra palette here just for ease of mixing, 2 glasses of clean water. I've got a bunch of brushes, but I'll probably do the entire painting with a number 8 round and a number 8 filbert, and maybe I'll reach for a smaller brush at some point. And then I'm going to finish up with colored pencil. Oh, and then I almost forgot, maybe our most important supply is the mulatto black liners. I'm going to draw the oranges in fine liner before I even begin painting. So get an archival quality waterproof fine liner. And then beginning in pencil, we're going to draw like 3 or 4 circles. I like to do things in odd numbers. So 3 circles, 3 oranges. I'm kind of putting some loose stems in here, some branches. And then I just want to get really free with these leaves. We want leaves framing the oranges in a really lovely way. We want them over top of the oranges, around the oranges, behind the oranges, below the oranges. And all of the branches should just sort of curve and flow in a really organic, sort of gentle way. So just think about sketching in a really loose, lovely manner, and I think you'll get this. And then the final trick here is just to draw like some messy little flowers. Again, I'm going to do 3s, so I will do 3 flowers, and then we will reach for that fine liner. I have to find it in my pencil case. Oh my gosh, I got it on the first try. That never happens. And by first try, I mean I was searching, I was digging in that pencil case for the 0.9 millimeter nib. I want a larger nib size to do the illustration part of this project, because once I add the watercolor, all that beautiful pigment, it's going to, kind of overtake the pen a little. So I want a line that really stands up to all the color and wet media that I'm going to put on top. So yeah, going over the little flowers, they're just really simple little 4 or 5 petal flowers. I went around the oranges, and you can see they're very perfectly imperfect circles. And then the leaves as well are kind of scribbly and sketchy and very perfectly imperfect. We want everything to look organic and messy and sketchy. This is like an artist's sketch, something in your sketchbook. This is a wonderful practice piece, but it is going to be a lovely illustration and painting when you're done as well, I hope. Went over a few of my lines a second time to darken them up. And then we're going to erase all of that pencil, get rid of every pencil line, because once you add watercolor, you can't get rid of it. And then let's start mixing up our colors. And the first color I want to mix up is green, because there are so many leaves in this piece. It's really the main component, actually. And so for my green, I'm mixing the olive green with raw umber. And I really like the way the brown deadens the green a bit. And then up here, you can see I'm mixing my green with a little bit of red. I'm using Rose Madder Hue to also kind of deaden the green, make it look a little more natural. So browns and reds, great way to sort of subdue your greens a little bit and make them kind of not so bright and grassy. Or if you have an emerald green in your set, it's nice to add a little bit of red to make it more natural. And then we are just going to start filling in these leaves, and I want to start with kind of the ones at the bottom here, which are going to be really prominent. And the nice thing is having extra palette space, I'm mixing up sort of these different colors of green. One will have a little more brown, one will have a little more red, one might have a little less water, so it will appear a little lighter, a little more transparent. And then we are going to keep adding to the greens. Here I'm adding a little bit of Sap Green, and I'm getting that kind of lighter color. Then I'm going to add a little bit of navy, and we're going to get a darker green. So make sure you've got room on the palette to just play around with color. And just a reminder, friends, if you think it would be helpful to have this sketch at your disposal, that is available to download and print over on my Patreon. To sign up over there, it's just $3 a month or $33 for an entire year. And right now, when you use code HOLIDAY24, you can save 25% on a year's subscription. The nice thing about having the drawing or just doing the drawing yourself is that you basically have a coloring book image when it comes time to paint, and that really allows you to focus on other aspects of watercolor painting, such as color mixing, such as brushwork. I'm using the number 8 round here, by the way. I started out with the filbert and then I switched. And I'm having a lot of fun just sort of adding a little bit of extra pressure, making really organic leaf shapes. And then I switch it up and I add extra water to the green. And with this really watery green, I add these messy, kind of transparent leaves in behind some of the illustrative leaves, and some not so much in behind, some just wherever, wherever I feel like another leaf is needed. Anyway, the main thing here is play around and see what you come up with, and have lots of room to mix. And then once we are done with those leaves, we are going to mix up the color for the oranges. And I am using raw sienna, as well as light red, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of white. So lots of that light red, which is a really nice sort of dark orange. And you should have a color that's really similar to what you see in my video here. That's the nice thing. If you're using the same palette, you can mix pretty much the exact same colors. And we are just going to fill in the majority of this bottom orange here. And I'm leaving a bit of a highlight, using a bit of a lighter pigment sort of in the center of the orange. I'm going to make it more dramatic on this one. So you can almost paint the perimeter and leave a big, massive highlight kind of right in the middle or off to the right just a little bit. And I think that looks so nice. And then here's what we can do. We'll wipe our brush, and then with a clean, fairly dry but slightly damp brush, we're going to soften up the highlight. So just soften it a little bit so that it's not just this white spot. Come in with a completely dry, clean brush and do a little bit of extra lifting. Now, if all of this wet into wet lifting, all of these techniques are like, what? I do have a beginner level watercolor e-course available, and that's on my website, shaydacampbell.com. And it is on sale right now. We're sort of doing a Black Friday Christmas shopping sale. So use code HOLIDAY24 to save 40% on all my e-courses site-wide. I put in the stems using Van Dyke Brown. And then while the oranges are still wet, I'm going in and doing that same shape, kind of painting the perimeter of the orange, leaving the big old highlight, but I've mixed a lot more light red into my orange paint at this point. So I'm doing this while the oranges are very, very lightly wet. And that way you get this really nice soft color build. Once again, we can use a little bit of lifting to soften that highlight. This is sort of blending and lifting. And then we're going to come back to the palette. Now I've reached for a really tiny brush, actually. I've got like a number 4 filbert. And I've just mixed white with like a hint of Payne's gray, a hint of brown. So I've got this sort of creamy, warm gray. And I'm just putting a few splotches at the center of each flower just to make them appear a little bit concave. But I don't think there's any harm in leaving them just totally white as well. So artist's choice. And then I'm actually mixing a bit of red and brown into the orange. And then once again, while these oranges are still lightly wet, we are doing some more color building. So doing some dotting with that darker reddish orangey brown where the stem meets the orange. We want to put a little splotch of darker color there. And yeah, you can see it's quite a nice soft color build using that wet into wet. I'll also do a bit more lifting on the highlights, and actually I'll use a paper towel. So the paper towel always will really soak up that pigment and let you lift it really beautifully. And I'm softening the lift using that little filbert brush. And then to complete the watercolor portion of this illustration, I'm using a really, really dark green. So mix a little dark blue in, mix a little brown in, a little less water, of course, as well, to make the green appear more opaque. And we're just doing some splotches. Anywhere the oranges are sitting on top of a leaf, that's a great place to add some shadow. Anywhere the flower is sitting on top of a leaf. So think about, where there would naturally be a little less light. And then let it dry. Once it has dried, maybe 10-15 minutes, make sure everything is nice and dry, and then we are going to come back in with our fine liner. Using the same pen, the 0.9 millimeter, I am outlining some of the leaves, but I like to have some that are unoutlined. I'm doing some dotting on the oranges to help give them their textured skin appearance. Adding some more sketchy lines on some of the branches, and really that's about it. The final thing I'll do is sketch in a few leaves that are not painted. Whenever I do these illustrative watercolor pieces, I like to do some bits that have no paint, no pigment, no color. So a few leaves and that should do the trick. I think at this point you could be done, but I would like to add a little bit of colored pencil. I've been very into mixed media this year, and that just means using more than one artistic supply. And so I'm using this really, really light yellow to draw some veining lines on some of the leaves. I don't want to do all of them. Part of making a painting is knowing what not to draw or not to paint, so don't do all of them. And then we'll grab a brown and a dark orange, and I'm just going to add some sketchy lines, like on the perimeter of these oranges, maybe a bit of line shading, sort of opposite where the highlight is. So if your highlight is upper right, do a bit of sketchy shading on the bottom left, and then that's it. We are done. You can sign your work and date it, and that's all. Done, as I said. Remember, if you would find having the sketch helpful, that is available on Patreon, so head over there. And I will see you very soon with a new tutorial, so don't forget to subscribe.